This is the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive.
Philip Barbary Jr. finished the U.S. Open this weekend at 24 over par. Made the cut, finished at 24 over. If you or I played Oakmont this weekend, we'd shoot a million.
Yeah, happy Father's Day, everybody. We're looking at people struggle on a golf course, just like everyone does, right? I mean, listen, 25 over par, it's what I'd be after one hole, if we're being honest. So
there was a guy who didn't make the cut who finished 35 over in 2 rounds. Oakmont is a monster. Put it under USGA conditions, and good night.
It's definitely
why nobody's under par.
Yeah, no, it's a lot to break down. But I suppose on a positive note, the Rangers have been pretty good lately, and we got a lot to talk about where they are concerned with what's on the show.
Here's What's on the Show, sponsored by NFM.
What other better way to celebrate Father's Day than talking baseball? Texas Rangers have won 3 series in a row after a sweep of the White Sox, and the offense has shown some signs of life. We'll break down the surging Rangers, take a look at some options they have with the trade deadline coming up in about a month and a half. Plus, it's the return of no fence riding, and we're talking about rule changes that I want to see in Major League Baseball. Not like there haven't been enough. Mike, that's what's on the show. Now, who's on the show?
On the show today, 2 of our friends from the All-City DLLS crew, John Rhadigan, Jeff Wilson. Gentlemen, we appreciate you being with us as always. I believe first time for both of you tonight. Talking a little Rangers with 2 guys who know the team extremely, extremely well, and a good time to talk a little Rangers because, fellas, this team has started to really turn things on. 7 wins in their last 8 games, 3 straight series wins. They're now all of a sudden just a half game out of the final wild card spot. I know it's early June, mid-June, so playoff positioning is rather meaningless, but just in the context of the rest of the league, they're finally getting into that conversation. What do you guys make of what we have seen from this team of late, and how real is it given some of the competition of late? Jeff, I'll start with you. What do you think about what they've done recently?
Well, I think they started playing really well against St. Louis. They had that game against Toronto where Josh Smith got the leadoff single, and then they went 0 for 27. That was like the offensive low. They came out the next night and scored some runs, got shut down, then scored some more runs. So they had a good winning series there. They went to Tampa, disastrous series, really, mental mistakes all over the place. But then they won 2 straight road series, and that's pretty important. I know it's the Nationals. They aren't great, but they're not awful this year. The Twins are a good club. And so then you come home and you get the White Sox. And these games weren't pretty, but a win's a win. And 3 wins in a row, this team is 100% going to take them. I do think the offense has turned a little bit of a corner. We see it with Simeon. You see it with Evan Carter. They've made a big difference. And then some of the other guys are contributing. Josh Smith got hot again, which is always good, especially for your leadoff guy. So it's looking good. And they have some pitching injuries, but it's about time the offense starts carrying the load a little bit here.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago when they played a series against the White Sox and lost 2 of 3, and the sky was falling. So, John, I'm curious from your perspective, now that it's a sweep and you can it's not even just a series win, it's 3 straight, 4 straight, counting the last win against the Twins, which was a 16-run game. What stood out to you?
Well, it's interesting that Jeff said he thought they started playing better in that St. Louis series when they started the very next road trip by being swept by Tampa Bay. However, to Jeff's point, those games, 2 of the 3 for sure, were very winnable, and were lost by brain farts, right? The first night it was Kamar Rocker. The second night there were multiple brain farts, including one by Marcus Simeon, right? So the fact that you lose those games that way isn't as heinous, I suppose. They're hard to take, but they're not. That's not something this team is known for, right? So they were even playing relatively well in that series in Tampa Bay. So they've had a good month or so of playing pretty good baseball without the results you would necessarily like. But to your point, Andrew, 3 series wins in a row is 3 series wins in a row. Kansas City comes calling next. They've lost 6 in a row, including just being swept by the Athletics of all people.
Yeah, no, their schedule upcoming, those 3 that you're talking about at home, then going on the road to face the Pirates and the Orioles. I mean, you've got a chance here to stockpile some wins for what feels like really the first chance maybe of this season. Jeff, you started down the path of the offense finally starting to get things going a little bit. Obviously, the 2 16-run games in a 3-day span is a really good sign. But this is an offense, this is a lineup that when you look at the names on the lineup card, feels like all season should have been producing at a level higher than they were. Now that we have finally seen not just them turn the corner, but seem to stockpile at least a good few days in a row, because we've seen them flash and then go dark immediately multiple times this season. This is the first time where we saw a flash, and then, hey, another flash 2 days later, and then a weekend full of wins where it wasn't necessarily on the back of the offense, but still a weekend full of wins. Is it different this time? Does this feel different to you? Like now maybe we have seen the worst of this Rangers lineup and they're going to start to maybe play to their paper a little more?
Yeah, it does. Just because Simeon, it really makes a huge difference when that guy who you're paying $25 million a year to be a great player starts being a great player again. And I just think that a lot of people, you can tell he broke his home run snap drought. I think it was against the Cardinals, and the team just was excited for him. And you could kind of see that they had known that this guy who does so much for him and is so dedicated to his craft finally broke through. And so they were happy. I think that when they say hitting is contagious, I think that kind of was the first sneeze, the first spreading of the germs. then you get Evan Carter back. And Evan Carter is just different than any of these hitters because of his quality of at-bats. You watch, he swings aggressively when the pitch is in the strike zone. He can lay off pitches. He follows the pitch. He tracks the pitch so long that he'll wait for it to break out of the zone. And I think that helps too. And then you look at Corey Seager, who was injured, came back for 4 games and was injured. So he basically missed a month. So it's taken him a little time for his bat to get back. But he's taken a walk now, I think, in 9 straight games. I mean, that's the longest in his career. And it's something that you just don't expect from him because he's so ultra aggressive. So maybe he's not contributing with doubles and home runs, but he's on base and scoring runs. So you get those 3 guys going, and now you're talking about your 3, 4, 5 hitters kind of clumped and going. Josh Smith gets going, and then Adolis Garcia's had a nice little run here since he got his little mental break there at the end of last month and the beginning of this month. He's been a really productive hitter. He'll still chase, but he won the game Saturday with the big hit. He's hitting the ball the other way, which I think is a good sign. So I think that you're seeing those pieces come together. And look, all those names except for Smith were on the 2023 team. And that's the thing. This personnel is not that dissimilar from the team that won the World Series. So there's opportunities for these guys to maybe not be as good as the 23 team, but to be a whole lot better than they have been.
And to pair that lineup, this team, those players, this offense, if they can actually start to hit anything even resembling that 23 team with the pitching staff that they have this year, that all of a sudden starts to look awfully dangerous. And we can talk about that obviously coming up, but there's a lot still to get into with this team for sure.
Absolutely. More specifically, moves they could make. We'll talk about the impending trade deadline coming up and how they can get better. Stay with us in the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. The first block, we talked a lot of offense. I want to talk about the pitching staff, more specifically injury to Tyler Mahle. They've had the bullpen kind of pick up the slack in recent games. John, I'm curious from your perspective, what has stuck out to you most on the pitching staff, aside from their traditional excellence, but more specifically how Bochy has handled these last couple games here?
Yeah, these last couple of games have been brilliant on the part of Bruce Bochy because that bullpen was on absolute fumes today in particular. And they did a great job getting through that and holding on to the 2-1 win. As far as the big picture goes of the pitching staff, 2 big surprises, really. We're not surprised by Jacob deGrom. We're not surprised by Nathan Eovaldi. Not even really by the success of Tyler Mahle, although maybe a little bit. But the big ones are Patrick Corbin and Jack Leiter, who's pitched so well. Jack Leiter was going to be in the bullpen to start this season were it not for injuries to Gray and to Bradford. So he gets pushed into the starting rotation, and he's doing a great job, as is Patrick Corbin, who Jeff always liked.
I heard Randy Galloway say on the radio the other day with our friend Stretch Smith, who does our football shows in the fall here on Sports Special. Randy Galloway said this might be the best Rangers pitching staff they've ever had. I'm curious how that hits the 2 of you and whether that's too far or if this pitching, at least from a starting perspective, the starting pitching staff, if that's a bridge too far in your opinion? It certainly made me kind of go, wow. I mean, I know they're playing well, but that's a big statement.
Well, Randy's seen them all. I mean, he started covering the team in '72, and those teams were awful. The '74 team was good, and had Ferguson, Jenkins, and should have won the Cy Young that year. The '83 team had a really good rotation. And the 2011 team was so durable. Maybe not any great pitchers. They had a bunch of all-stars with C.J. Wilson and Alexi Ogando, I think, was an all-star that year. But this one has the star power. And the thing that this team does, this rotation does, is it really doesn't beat themselves. You don't see them walking the bases loaded and giving up a home run. Jack Leiter gave up a 3-run homer the other day, and it was messy. It was a walk and a hit and a 3-run homer, and you haven't seen them beating themselves. And so DeGrom doesn't walk anybody, Eovaldi doesn't walk anybody, and then Corbin is smart enough to and even Malley, they have the moxie to get around a lineup. So it's refreshing to see guys attacking hitters. They're not scared of anybody. So I think that's the biggest difference. And I think at this point in the season, Randy's not wrong. The rotation ERA historically is the best it's been through 70 games. It was the best it's been through like 45 games. It just has been consistent all year. So he's onto something there. They've never had a pitcher like DeGrom. No offense to Nolan Ryan. They've never had a guy who has the chance every night to go out there and just completely shut down a lineup, strike a bunch of guys out, not walk anybody, not give up any hard contact ever. That's what Jacob DeGrom can do every start, and he's going to be an interesting Hall of Fame case. I keep saying that. If this season and the next 2 seasons and maybe 1 or 2 after that are really, really good, he's going to be a one-of-a-kind Hall of Fame candidate.
And to make Randy's point real quick, this will be quick, but there's 3 guys who could be in the conversation for the Cy Young. The Rangers have never had a Cy Young Award winner. And ironically, at the beginning, the first 2 months of the season, Jacob DeGrom's name wasn't one on the list. It was Nathan Eovaldi and Tyler Malley. And of course, DeGrom will probably insert himself into that conversation because he's DeGrom.
Well, I tell you what, there's a lot to like on the pitching staff. I know there's still a lot of talk on the DH side of things. So I'm curious from your perspective, guys, and I'll start with John on this one. What do they need to do to get better here toward the trade deadline?
Well, they certainly could use a bat, but there's no place to put one unless they trade one of their other position players, which is unlikely and would mostly be ridiculous. So where they're going to get better, where they need to get better, where Chris Young has even alluded to they will get better if they're still in the hunt, is in the bullpen, right? They need to get better in the bullpen. It's just it's been better than we thought it would be, but every team in baseball could say, yeah, we need to get better in the bullpen, and then the Rangers definitely do.
Jeff, your thoughts?
Yeah, 100% agree. You saw the last 3 wins. It's Robert Garcia. I don't know that he's a closer yet. Luke Jackson. I don't think he's a closer. Let's say this team is good and is going to be in the playoffs. Who do you want to close the games? Probably none of those guys. Now it's not a perfect world, but you need to go. You need to have a guy that can go in there when it's maybe you're in a cold weather city and go in there throwing in the upper 90s and make the batters hurt to hit the ball. Just sting their hands, just overpower guys, and they don't have that. And for all of Jose Leclerc's flaws, the guy could throw hard. Okay, Neftali Feliz could throw hard. And you look at teams that win the World Series traditionally, they have guys that can just absolutely come in and shut a game down.
Yeah, I listened to you guys.
I don't think they have that right now.
I listened to you guys talking about Sebastian Walcott the other day on your All City Dallas show, and to your point, John, about the fact that there's kind of nowhere to put any. Like if you go trade for a bat, where do you put them on the field? Where do you put them in the lineup? There's not a no doubt hole for somebody that you trade for or for somebody like Walcott, and Walcott's as you guys got into on that show, he's still too young and too raw to realistically entertain that thought, but it applies to this trade conversation as well. Where are you actually going to put somebody? But yeah, if they can go get somebody in the bullpen and at least shore up that piece of it, that might bait that small difference in what's going to be a very crowded conversation both in the West and in the AL wildcard.
I'll also say this, you guys looking for a closer. One Patrick Corbin has come in late in a Game 7 against the Astros previously and delivered in those moments. So you've already got one of those guys on the roster, and don't feel bad about giving him the ball in that situation.
Yeah.
Go Nationals. All right,
Sure.
when we come back,